Good evening, Corona Daze Professional Development Group. It's me, Danette Edwards. I'm here this evening with Bridget Baggett. Bridget, do I say your name wrong?
No, it's Bridget Baggett. You're right.
Okay, Baggett. I always say Baggett. Baggett. And this evening, this is her third presentation with us, and we appreciate you so much, Bridget. She's going to be talking to us this evening about Mangled Mindset, discovering a laser-focused job search. All right, so let's see what our flyer says. It says, learn how to create realistic milestones that lead to tangible results. Discover how to track your efforts and make on-demand changes that generate desirable results. Explore how to make accurate predictions based on your efforts that lead to more interviews and offers. So a little about Bridget. Bridget Baggett is the founder of Twisted Career. It is a career strategist and a diversity advocate that assists professionals with their career journeys. She helps career-oriented professionals navigate the competitive workforce by setting obtainable career goals that lead to gainful employment, promotions, salary increases, and meaningful career changes. So, Bridget, if I left anything out, please add it. I'm going to turn it over to Bridget, guys, because you know I always make some kind of mistake at this point. So thank you again for joining us, Bridget. I'm going to stop my video, guys. We will let's do a dedicated Q&A at the end. I'm going to go ahead and stop my video and mute myself. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for joining tonight, or if you're watching this recorded. But I do want to say thank you, and you did an awesome job with the introduction. I am going to share my screen, share a couple of slides, and go through kind of like getting your mindset ready and prepared for a job search, but also being able to put a plan in place to track your efforts. The worst thing that can happen is that you do all this stuff and you don't kind of know what stuff you're doing, and you don't know what's working, and you don't know what is working. You're just looking for a result. And I think that you'll have a better outcome and a more focused search. We can start to be able to be more organized and be able to have a laser focus on what type of result that you're trying to achieve and the tools in place to track that. So we're going to start off with that. I'm going to go ahead and show my screen so you can see it. And so everyone should be able to see my screen, and I'm going to go ahead and put this into, into slideshow mode. So that's the beginning. And I always start with an about me, not to go over my bio again, but just to get people to see a visual of who I am. And I use a word cloud to do that. So I always love this quote: if opportunity doesn't knock, you build a door. And these are some of the career paths I've taken throughout my career and throughout my jobs and everything that I've done to get to where I am today. And you may look at that and see some jobs that you may have had, or you may have said, oh God, I was a telemarketer at one point or a coach at another point. So I've done different things that kind of molded me to be on the path that I am. And every career or job that I had always had some type of purpose and was some type of puzzle piece to this bigger picture. So you want to always keep that in mind. And it takes me to my next slide. You want to know your purpose. And you want to know why you take the jobs that you do. You know, how does it align with your overall big picture? And the meaning of life, I find, is to find your gift. You know, what are you good at? What are your talents? And the purpose of life is to be able to give it away. So you want to know what your why is. And as you put together your plan of action, whether you're currently employed now, whether you're in between jobs, or whether you've just been recently laid off due to our current economic circumstances, you still want to remember your why and use that in getting back into the workforce. So you want to have a mental mindset, and you want to start to plan your steps. So being able to think things through. You do want to know what your outcome is, but you also want to be able to put together steps to get to it. So you want to take action with everything that you're trying to pursue, even if it's as simple as just planning out how many jobs you're going to apply for in a day. That may sound kind of trivial, like, well, you know, I see a job I want and I just apply for it. But think of how much structure and how much you'll be able to achieve if you actually took time, just 1 hour out the day, and actually plan, these are the positions that I'm going to apply to just for today, and set a number somewhere in your mind. And we'll also go through some type of resources that you can use to start being able to track some of your planning and then be able to put that into action. So you want to plan your steps and you want to get ready to take action. Next thing you want to do is you want to be able to put together an action plan. And this slide may look familiar to those that have seen my past workshop, but it's just so important that you want to take an assessment of yourself before you start planning and before you start executing. It's just so crucial to do that. You want to weigh the pros and the cons of where you are. There are a lot of people that have been separated from their place of employment due to either a layoff or due to a workforce reduction. This is the time to start weighing your options and looking at the pros and the cons before you just jump out there and try to find a replacement job for the exact same position that you had. Start thinking about, what were the pros and cons on that position? What are some things that I learned? What are some things that I can actually leverage for maybe a higher position or a higher title? Or maybe is this the time for me to start to pivot to a whole different industry? This is the time that you really do want to do some inner thinking and start doing some inner exploring on what do I want to do and how do I want to get there. And I need to take an assessment of those things. So you want to do your research. You want to put together a realistic and feasible timeline. We all may be at a place where, you want to get a job within the next 30 days. That may not be realistic for the type of position that you're looking for. Right now, as we go into November, a lot of employers are now planning for 2021. They're trying to figure out what does that look like for the new year. And they're also trying to look at what does it look like under the conditions that we're in. Some organizations aren't hiring. They have a hiring freeze. They don't plan on hiring until maybe spring of 2021 or even summer of 2021. So you also had to take those into consideration when you put together your timeline. And then you also want to explore your limitations. And that also comes into play is, what does it look like for you if you were out of work for longer than 30 days or out of work for longer than 6 months? What are your limitations? What does it look like if you have to take a job until you get the job you really want? You want to be able to put this all down, put it on paper, put it in a journal, and be able to think about these key assessments as you plan out your milestones and your overall goals. Next thing, you want to look at the resources that you currently have in place. So as you may be confused about what direction to take, I know there's some people that were laid off that hadn't been in this type of environment far as back in the workforce looking for 10, 15, 20 years. I've actually encountered people that have said that I haven't had to look for a job since the 90s. So they don't even know where to start. So if you fall in that category, you definitely want to think about the resources that you already have in place. What can you leverage? One of the biggest resources out there that I think 90 plus recruiters or hiring managers use is LinkedIn. So if you don't have a LinkedIn account, this is the time to create one. And then you want to reach out to your network. Your network is going to be anybody that you have worked with in the past. So these can be former colleagues. These can be friends. These can be people that are in the industry that you may not have worked with or worked for, but they may align with your professional goals and your professional outcomes. So it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that you all or have to be people that you all worked with. So you also want to explore that as well. I encourage people to look at professional associations. I'm big with that. I know some associations are extending either discounted or free memberships for those that are displaced if you're in a particular industry. And I think nowadays almost every industry has some type of group, association, club, something affiliated with that profession. I definitely would gravitate to those type of resources and those types of groups. It's amazing how some people find positions, find opportunities within the network of people that all do the same thing. So if you can locate or identify a professional association within your industry, I definitely recommend that you reach out, join, be a part of, go to the meetings, network, and be able to put yourself out there as someone that is looking for employment. Next thing you want to do is, once you're able to do your assessment, you kind of have a timeline of what you want to do. You started to weigh the pros and the cons. Now you want to explore, how do I execute this? You want to put together some type of actionable plan that you can kind of do on a daily basis. So we're not talking about put together a 5 or 10 year plan and think that we're going to execute that in the next 30 days. You want to start small. You want to be able to think about, okay, what do I need to do every day to get to this particular milestone? So we're going to make this a digestible schedule, that if you know that you're looking for a position or looking for some type of employment within a certain amount of time, you have to almost reverse engineer, what does that look like, and what are the steps that I need to be taking every single day to make sure I hit this milestone. So this can be a daily schedule, it can be a weekly schedule, and you want to definitely make sure that you're using the SMART goals timeline, which means that you're very specific, or you're very specific on what you want to accomplish. You want to make sure that anything that you execute actually can be measurable. Make sure it's achievable, relevant, and then you put some type of timetable to that. So make sure all your goals that you are putting together are SMART goals, and you want to make sure that they're realistic, attainable milestones that you can achieve. An example could be, every day I know I want to apply to X amount of jobs, and set a schedule for that. By 10 o'clock or by noon or by 2 o'clock, I want to have applied to XYZ. Every night before you do that, you want to write down what are the companies and the positions that you want to apply for. That's when your research comes in. So you want to already have this done. So when you wake up that week or for that week, you already know, I'm applying to 5 positions a day. After I apply to those positions, I'm going to be reaching out to 5 hiring managers or decision makers on this particular job title and associated with this job every day. So again, this is an action plan that you want to put together to make sure that you're not only just applying to things, you're tracking your efforts. So when they do call you back, and I know there's been times when this happened and you're like, what, who? And you start looking like, did I apply to that? What company is this? You want to make sure that you have everything in place. So when that hiring manager or that recruiter does call you back, you already have everything in place and you're ready to talk business and move on to the next step. What's going to make this something that's going to be doable is that you're going to have to be able to celebrate your small wins. I think a lot of people do get discouraged within the start of doing something like this. If they don't hear back immediately, they give up, or their momentum slows down and they just feel as if, okay, this isn't working. So they quit altogether. You have to celebrate your small wins, which means that if you reached out to those 5 companies that you said you were going to reach out to, that's a win. So you want to make sure that you are at least acknowledging that you're executing the plan that you put in place, and not so much focused on the end result. That's when I said you want to be able to look at the small steps that you're taking first before we start looking at the entire staircase. So look at that first step first. That can be weekly goals, that can be monthly goals. And then once you start hitting your daily, your weekly, and monthly goals, then we can start opening up to your annual goals. So make sure that you're not beating yourself up if you're not seeing results immediately. This is going to take me to the tools that I use to track, or tools I suggest that you actually kind of look at to track. Twisted Careers actually partnered with these 2 companies. We're going to be rolling out a membership that will include access to Skill Syncer. Hunter is a good tool. They do offer a free account. With all free accounts, there's limitations. Skill Syncer will, with our partnership, you'll get a full 30-day partner, a 30-day access to it. And of course, good old-fashioned Excel. So if you know how to use the Excel document, you can plug your data in there. And our next slides, we're going to be talking about what you actually track and how you can use that data to predict some of your outcomes that you're looking for. So some of the data, if you go to these websites, I'm keeping the slide up, so if you can write it down, screenshot it. These are some great tools to use to track your efforts. And what I mean by that is, instead of putting everything into a spreadsheet, what I did forever, I came upon these tools and I said, oh my God, these are great. It's basically kind of like a Trello board. If anybody's familiar with a Trello board, in which that each position that you apply to, you're able to use their Chrome extension and pretty much click on your job posting, and it'll actually export it to their database. And from there, you're able to add your notes and able to say, the date that you applied, what you applied for. And what I would add is actually the direct decision maker for that job. So as it exports or imports that data to that actual database, I will also be tagging each job that you apply for with the decision maker that you may have to do some research on, because I know LinkedIn, they're good about, showing who posts the job, but some jobs don't show you that information, especially if you're using external resources like Indeed or Daze or some of these job boards that don't tell you who actually posted. You may have to go to LinkedIn and find out, okay, if I'm applying for, just say, a manager position in design, I'm going to look for, okay, who would I be reporting to in this role? And you can find that person on LinkedIn. You're able to tag these positions or tag these applications in this particular resource, and you're able to track whether or not you got a call back, whether or not you had an interview, whether or not an offer was made. It's a awesome tracking mechanism. So just check it out. Look at the websites, see what they have to offer. Is a great way to start tracking your efforts on everything that you apply to. Next thing, you want to know what you're tracking. So we're going to talk about that. So as you start to look at jobs, you've done your research, you're getting excited about the positions and the titles that you want to go for, whether it's in a totally different industry that you came out of, or whether it's kind of aligned with you've been doing your whole life. You want to track the data. Data does not lie. It speaks very loudly to what your efforts are. So what are you tracking? You first want to track your job applications, the jobs that you're applying to. I know that goes without saying, but you want to definitely not only track the position titles, but how many you're applying to each day. It's very important that you do that. Many people aren't doing that. They're just applying it as they see it. They're saving it. They'll go to it when they get that alert telling them to, and they really aren't keeping track of this data. So you definitely want to track the amount of job applications that you're applying to on a daily and on a weekly basis. So just keep a running tab on that. And then you want to track on any type of warm introductions that you do. So this should go hand in hand. So if I'm applying to a job, I want everyone to start getting in the habit of finding out who that decision maker would be on that particular job. So you want to be able to send out some type of warm introduction. In the past, I've usually, sent out an email or sent out a LinkedIn request or connection, just giving them a heads up. Hey, I'm Bridget, so and so and so. And I have some templates I can share as well. Basically saying that, hey, I applied to this position. I always like to open it up with an accomplishment or a skill set that I know is kind of the requirement of the job. And then I close it with a call to action, just asking to make sure that not only do they receive my message, but if even further, you can take a step further and just inquire about the hiring process, or when do they think they're going to start interviewing. So that's something that you can do in your warm introduction. You want to also be tracking your responses in your callbacks. That's important as well. So as you're applying to these positions, you're keeping track of your job applications, you're keeping track of who you're reaching out to. And out of that, you want to keep track of who's actually reaching back out to you, who's actually responding. Are you getting responses from your warm introductions? And then it takes you to interviews. Are you getting interviews for the positions that you're applying for? And once you start building up getting interviews, you want to start tracking, okay, how many offers am I getting? And that's going to take us to your data. So data talks loud. What does your data say? So I like to use ratios. I like to, I know when I was in the recruiting world and I did my recruiting, we had what we called a placement ratio. You know, how many people did you interview in order to get a placement? So you had your interview to placement ratio. So that was something that I tracked when I used to do headhunting and recruiting. So I took that same concept and I put it kind of like in the job search arena. So what are some ratios that I really think that you should focus on? Is your application to interview ratio, which means how many jobs do I have to apply for before I get an interview? That's why that previous slide was so important, because you want to start tracking how many jobs do I have to apply to before I get an interview. The second was, how many introductions do I send out before I get a response? And your third ratio you want to look at is how many interviews, whether they're phone interviews or screening interviews, face-to-face in this atmosphere, maybe a Zoom interview, how many of those do I have to go through first time, second time, or third time before I get an actual physical offer? And some people may stop at the offer and say, well, I got what I wanted, I don't have to track anymore. But some people don't get the offer they want. So it's back to the drawing board. So that's why you want to make sure that you're tracking these numbers, so you'll have a good prediction of what that looks like if you have to do it all over again. And also, you'll use this data to start tweaking what you have to do in order to get interviews. So if you're starting to see, I'm applying to 5 positions a day, and I'm just using that as a number. I know people that apply way more than 5 jobs a day, but I'm using that just as an example. Say I apply for 5 positions a day, and it's taken me 25 applications before I get 1 interview. And I'm not doing this on the weekend. My weekends, I'm free. So Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, I'm submitting 5 applications. So that's pretty much saying it's going to take you a whole week of applying to somewhere before you even get a call back for 1 interview. And if you want that to happen faster, and again, we have to remember that we don't get interviews right away. There's been positions where I applied for that I have to look back and say, oh, I applied for that back in May, or I applied for that back in, June. It doesn't happen right away. That's why you have to track this to see, where category does that fall in. So introductions as well, as you're sending out your warm introductions to either recruiters or managers or decision makers, how many people are responding back? Are you getting responses back? Even if it's a response to recognize they just got your message, because some may not respond back with a 4-page letter. They may just respond back like, hey, thank you, got your application. That counts as a response. So you want to make sure you're tracking that as well. And again, interviews to offers. How many interviews am I going on? Because I know plenty of people that can get the interview, but somehow cannot close the deal. They can get the interview all day, but they can't close the deal. They never can get to the offer for whatever reason. And that's something that we had to walk through and talk about. So you want to focus on that as well. If you're getting the interviews, what does that look like to your offer? So that's the ratio you want to make sure that you're looking at. Data talks loud, and let's look at some examples. So I gave you one, application to interview. I submit 25 applications a week. I'm only getting 3 interviews. That's only 12%. That's low. So think about if you multiply that by 4, someone submits 100 applications, and they only get 9 interviews out of 100 applications. Was that, yeah, 3 every 3 for 25, so 12. I think that is 12. 12 interviews for 100 applications. You'll be like, oh my God. So again, you got to see this data to understand. So if you multiply that by 4, and using low numbers, it may not seem too bad. You're like, oh, that's not too bad. But if we all know that most people apply to more than 25 jobs, especially if they've been out of work for a while. That 25 can turn into 200 quick. And you want to make sure that your application to interview ratio is higher than 12%. Introduction to responses. So every time I send out a welcome or a warm introduction, say I send out 15 in a week, I'm only getting 5 responses back. That's a 33% response rate. For interviews to offers, I have 5 interviews lined up with 5 different companies, and they're going great. And out of all those interviews, only one of them made me an offer. That's a 20% offer rate. So what does that data say? Low percentages, these can be due to these outcomes. Either you're showing low or no value. So let's go back to this one. If your application to interview ratio is low, and we're talking about, 15% or lower, that means that you're either showing low or no value, because your resume is going to be your first line of defense unless you can get a direct referral, which I'm always in favor of. I don't mind them directing me to the portal to apply, but if someone gives you a direct referral, that's going to get a better turnout than you just being a resume they picked among their ATS system. But if you are having a very low interview rate, it could be because your resume may be not showing or not being competitive. It could be that your accomplishments are not being revealed on your resume. Your responses to being able to reach out may not be showing up. So if you're reaching out and you're not being able to communicate or convey your accomplishments, it's one thing not to have it on your resume, but if you can at least get them on the phone or at least get them in an email, you're able to communicate your skill set and the value you bring. If that's not there, that also is going to bring down your ratio and bring down your response rate. Your interview and communication skills. So if your offer rate is low, so if you're having 5 to 10 interviews within a 6-month period and you're not getting no offers, or the one offer you get, they're basically telling you take it or leave it. We're not going to match what you're asking. It could be that you either aren't communicating what your value is, or your interview skills aren't there. They just don't see you as a fit. You aren't able to communicate thoroughly in the interview what you can bring them, and become an asset to the organization. So usually if they don't feel that you're a competitive candidate and they're interviewing other competitive candidates, so say you're one of 3 people that they're interviewing, they're going to go to the one that they can see that the person's able to showcase their skills, their accomplishments, and not only showcase it on their resume, they're able to actually convey it through the interview. So that's something that you have to think about if you're having a low offer rate as well. And then the final one, if you ever checked out my last workshop, is that you may have a low likability factor. which means that you may come across as someone that's just not likable for whatever reason. And again, I talk about that in the last workshop, how it can just be your demeanor. It can be maybe what co-workers have thought of you. It can be just the way you express yourself and carry yourself that may give off a low likability factor for them. And some may feel that, you may not be a good fit for the organization based on their company culture. So this is some of the things that you want to look at if you find out that you have a very low ratio or a very low percentage. Start to, again, backtrack. That's why we're good at planning, being able to put this down, creating that action plan. And you're able to go back to see, once you look these data points and be able to see that, hey, my interview rate is very high, but I'm not getting any offers. Or I'm able to make great introductions, but I'm not getting any responses. When you start to be able to analyze that data, you're able to change the way it actually predicts your outcomes. And that's what you want to think about. If I know what my numbers are, I can measure it and I can change it. So that's what you want to think about doing when you start to know your numbers. So your next one is your impact. So what impacts your response rates on some of these things? Not everything is within your control. Again, we can't force companies to hire you. We can't force companies to interview you. That's something that they have to do. A lot of it can deal with the volume. If you have a very hot, well-known company that everybody wants to work for, you may have the best skill set on the planet, but you're competing with 5 other applications. That's something that's out of your hands and you really can't control. Some of the things you can control is following up. So if you did get a good response rate to your warm introductions, if you reached out to that hiring manager, that recruiter, or that decision maker, and you got a response from them, that means you got their attention. You want to leverage that and follow up. Make sure that you're following up and you're actually keeping them engaged in the process. I've seen hiring process, especially during this predicament that we're in, that's taken a long time. People aren't, some people aren't hiring like that, like they used to, which, I can get you in an interview and have you hired in 30 days. It may be, hey, we have your resume, you're a great candidate. We want to keep this conversation going, and you may not hear from them for a month or two. I've actually had employers circle back around after I've already taken other offers. I'm like, oh wow, I applied to that job and interviewed 7-8 months ago. So you also have to remember that a lot of the change and a lot of the results are going to be in the follow-up. Check-in. So you want to definitely make sure that you're checking in not on your follow-ups and on your process, but you're checking in on yourself. You want to make sure that you're executing the plan that you put in place and you're doing it consistently. And you're also are doing it in a way that you're looking at the results and you're modifying your plan as needed to make the changes to get what you want or what your desired results should be. And you also want to look at your processes. That's why I shared with you the resources that you can use. I know a lot of people can get overwhelmed when looking at everything on a spreadsheet. It starts to get confusing. That's why I told you about those 2 platforms that you can take a look at as well. And that can be incorporated in your process because it's definitely much more automated, willing with the widget or with the extension. So you're not having to copy and paste and copy and do this. You're able to push a button and it brings it into that particular platform. So want to make sure you have a seamless process in place so that way you're not getting burnt out prematurely. And usually what happens when you start to get burnt out very early on, you start to give up and you start to say, well, you know what, I'm tired, it's not working. And it's really not working, is that you're not seeing results because you're not staying consistent. So you want to make sure that these 3 elements that impact your response rate is definitely going to be your follow-up, definitely going to be whether you're checking in, and definitely going to be whether you have the tools, the processes, and resources in place to make this a consistent effort each and every day. So you want to make, and I have a typo, it's supposed to be make changes. Also a way to increase your ratio you want to make updates as you start to see what's working and what's not working. And I will also think about doing a check-in about every 2 weeks to every month. Because again, you're not going to get an instant response. Sometimes you do, but many times if you apply for a position, you may not hear back for a week or two. And so, like I said, in this environment, you may not hear back for a month. So that's why I say use about 2 weeks to a month to have your checkpoint in which you go back and you look to see, okay, where do I need to make my updates? Where do I need to make my changes? You also have to be flexible with your career search. You also have to be flexible with your outcomes. And again, being realistic with your goals. Having a 30-day goal may not be realistic in a particular industry, or if you're lacking a particular skill set. So you definitely want to be flexible. And if it's dire for you to have a position in 30 days, you have to understand it may not be the position you want. And maybe, hey, I have to take this until I can find what I really want. And that's okay. But again, you have to be flexible to be able to do that. And from there, you'll make your changes and your modifications to everything that you're doing. And again, it's a wash, rinse, repeat. You want to make sure you're going back every month, every 14 to 30 days. Looking at that, making sure that everything is aligned. If your ratios or your percentages start to drop, you can go back and say, this is what I need to put in place to modify this. Try it again, see what works, see what doesn't work. And again, this is something that you have to be consistent with on a daily basis. So I hope that helps with being able to track, being able to be flexible, and being able to make updates as needed. This is my contact information. I know I always had the late workshop, but I do like to be able to keep it pretty much direct, short and sweet, so everybody's able to get all the information. And I'm going to open, I guess, the last 20 minutes or so up for Q&A. And then you can ask me anything you
like. Thank you, Bridget.
No problem.
I appreciate you. All right. Can you see me? All right, I'm back.
Yes, I can see you now.
I have one question here, and then I'm going to go look in the group. This came from Facebook. How do these ratios work if I'm tailoring my resume for each position?
Well, the ratios won't impact what you're applying for. You're just tracking the data that you are applying in general. So if you're, an application would count as an application, whether you're applying to be a director or a manager. So I hope that makes sense. You just want to be able to track what you're applying for. And do you want to attract the responses you're getting? So, for every position that you're applying for, you're tracking that. How many interviews are you getting from all your applications? So you're looking at those ratios. So it's not going to affect, the job titles or how you tailor your resume to the job. The only way that would matter, and again, I didn't want to make it as complex as breaking it, or I should say segmented down to the positions that you apply to. You definitely could do that if you want to have a little bit more detail on the data. So say if you're going to be applying to one industry A, and you're also going to be applying to industry B, and you have two separate resumes kind of targeted to those two separate industries, then you would track each industry.
I think,
and that's, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I think this was more on the lines of my numbers won't be so high. My ratios are going to be low because I'm tailoring my resume for a specific position. So I think in the example, if somebody's sending 25 resumes a day, well, a person tailoring so specifically is not sending 25 resumes a day. Make sense? Because
you're right, but it wouldn't.
And their ratios would be
it wouldn't if you were selling. Yeah, but even if you're sending 5 resumes a day, or you're sending 10 resumes, well, let's say even 5 resumes a day, and you get 2 interviews from it, that's still like 20%. That's still higher than 12. Than the example I gave. You just want to make sure, and I think you're going to get better responses if you do tailor your resume. You know, it's not about doing a full blast. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. So I wouldn't try to blast every application with it.
Okay, let me go into the group. I have comments in the group, but you'll see those when you log in. Let's see. Let me go back. Any comment, anything besides comments, please drop them. I'm gonna go ahead with my 2 questions. Okay, all right. So, all right, you know how they go. How they do. So Bridget, you know, I have my 3 questions, but I won't ask you the first because we've been there before. But if you go back and tell your younger self something about the topic tonight, about, I guess I would say, in reference to having a laser focused, you know, like just objective or approach to the career search. What would you tell your younger self about that? Like, did you, or were you willy-nilly? Were you, okay, I'm gonna apply here. Like, is there anything that you would do differently?
Oh, definitely. I would take my own advice, because I did not have a laser focused job search. I didn't know anything about being able to track and breaking it down for ratios. So I was very willy-nilly. I'm gonna apply to something that I like, enjoy, and just kind of, you know, see if they call back, and you know what they say, throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. So I think I did have that methodology when I was younger, and for that time it worked. And it worked because the type of positions I was applying for, you know, I was applying to positions that would probably had very high turnover, that weren't paying a lot, you know. But as you start to climb up the corporate ladder, you tend to find out that those positions are don't come a dime a dozen like they do in lower level positions. And it's a lot more work to get an executive level job than to get a job that's going to pay $10 or $15 an hour. It's going to take a lot more work, and you're going to have to be able to show a lot more value, because they're putting more skin in the game, and they're going to expect that in return. So I kind of learned that as I got older, and I wanted more, and I know I wanted more out of my career. So I kind of knew the steps that I had to take, and I had to be a little bit more laser focused and intentional with what I was doing, because if you apply to anything, you get anything.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you. Let me check again, because you know I like my last question to be my last question.
When we sign off, we off.
Yeah, I like that to be the last one. So, okay, I don't see anything but comments in here. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. I know you guys like it a little early, so I thank you for joining us. Anyone who catches this on the replay, please drop any comments or questions that you have for Bridget, because she's in the group and a very active member, okay?
Just tag me and I'll answer you.
So my actually, before I go to that question, I think I had something else. What do you do with, since you have been a recruiter and you're a career strategist, what do you do with people who they want a job, but they are absolutely not, they don't have the skill set for the position? And they come to you. I'm asking you, because this has happened like 3 times lately, where people have come to me, because I'm Danette, founder of Daze Professionals, and they've not been qualified for their position. I know, guys, I kind of went off, but this is on in terms of the people weren't really focused. So they're not realistic. Actually, I'll just ask you, could you say something generally about that?
So
be said.
I don't know if they're way off, because I've had it on both sides, that someone would come and they're not too far off, and then you have someone that is like, you know, on a different planet, like
yes.
So you and the thing is, and it depends on where they are in life. Again, me being in higher ed, I could actually handle it with kitten gloves because they were young. They had time. They were able to, go out and experience life, make a couple of mistakes, and they're 22 years old. So you're like, yeah, you're good. But as I worked with people that were a little bit older and some close, yeah, that's when you have to actually have, and I don't know how close they are, but my coaching can be, I tell people I give tough love. So they have to be ready to hear what I'm going to say. And then I am very open and honest and direct and tell them, this is what the position is that you want to do. And then I ask them, and this is what you have to do. You ask questions so they can almost eliminate themselves.
All right. Okay.
And usually when they want to apply for a position, I'll tell them, send me the position, send me the job description that you want to apply to, or what you want me to apply, tailor your resume to. And then they'll send it. And like you said, it's far-fetched. Yeah. And then we'll have our conversation, and I ask them, like, this position is asking for 10 years experience in project management. Have you done that? And are you certified? Do you have your PMP certification? No. So they start saying, you get what I'm saying? Yeah, then after they hear themselves say no about 10 times, they're like, well, I guess I'm not qualified for that.
All right. So you're better than me, because I just said straight up, I get a little frustrated because I got a lot going on here, and everybody knows
I don't have time for that.
I don't always have the best chill, but I just said to someone this evening, but I said it to two people. I said, you're not qualified for this position. It just, and so you're not qualified for this position unless there's something that's not on your resume that I don't know about, So
and what are usually their responses when you say that?
Okay. Like, no fight, no, okay, like, it's okay. But I really I don't know if it's just me, like, I project a lot. So, there's a position, I want to apply for it. I look, hey, maybe because I write job descriptions, right? Or have written them. Oh, okay, I could do that. I've never done that, but I could do it. I have I go through that. So I don't know how we get people, job seekers, to understand that that's something you need to do, right? You actually really need to read a job description and say, can you,
like a mental checklist. Yeah. Like, check, did I do that?
Yeah. Like just a real, perfunctory, just, okay, now I can think about how do I then tailor my resume to fit it, right? As opposed to, I think a lot of people may look at a job and say, I just want that job, right? Whether it's the salary or the title or the company or whatever, and then realizing that they're not qualified. And then being a hiring manager, being that hat, I've had people send me resumes. I'm like, what did you think? Just exactly like they should have had me say, no, you're not qualified for the job, right? So then you get all these resumes, which is why an ATS system, which I've used on multiple jobs, they work. And I won't use one. So I don't apply for jobs through ATS. I will never. If as soon as a job, if it's not like send Bridget my resume, I don't apply. I don't right?
Or if you do apply, you make sure that your resume gets in someone's hands that's making that hiring decision.
Yeah. The only time I will do the ATS is if after you and I have spoken and everything, and you're like, you have to go through the system, because I know there are organizations where you have to go through the system as, like it just needs to be in there. But one of the reasons I don't use it, so guys, listen to this, is I know I used to knock out questions. And if you ever work with me, you know about my knockout questions. So I'm going to knock you out. Like, I'm not going to play around. I'm going to ask you some questions. And it's, so I knock out. And so an example is like Kenya, I could have a position available in Kenya, and I'm going to get in 2 days, 1,200 resumes.
Woo!
Yeah. This is a local position in Kenya, right? I'm going to get 1,200 resumes. I can't go through that. My system can't. So I just have like I'm the queen of knockout questions. So I don't want anybody turning the table on me. So I don't do ATS. But anyway, we can have a long discussion on this. I don't went everywhere, but this is but these are all things, your mind goes everywhere. But guys, these are all things that are important to having a laser focused job search, career search, right? Because if you have said this is the position for me, not just because I want it, but because I can perform it, because I have the credential that they're looking for, or the experience and credential, and I can do this job. Now I have determined how I can show that to them on paper, right? Then no matter what questions I put on that ATS to knock you out, you're going to get through them because you actually are qualified for that job. So, so that all comes into play. Now, the last piece of that, which you touched on, Bridget, and I think we probably should have a whole, maybe just like a table talk with a couple of people on here, of the people who they hire you. You write them that resume, you coach them, and they can never get a job. Or it takes forever for them to get the job. Like they just can't close those interviews. I've had multiple people like that. Like they just don't interview well, but they are, anyway, neither here nor there. I know I went off, guys, but this is still good information. So it's my final question. Let me go back to the chat. Y'all know I had a week. That's why it's Tuesday. I had a little week already. Okay. So my final question, Bridget, what do you want to leave us with tonight? If you can only leave us with one thing, what would you want to leave us with after I went all over the place?
Okay. And I think I even said it in the workshop, but you can't change what you don't measure.
Okay.
So I think that in order to have a laser focus, make sure that you definitely are tracking everything, and you know what's working and you know what's not. So you can't change what you don't measure.
All right now. Well, thank you. Thank you not just for tonight, but for all three of your appearances with us. You're welcome back. And thank you for always supporting us by being an active member within the group. I do definitely appreciate your expertise.
Yes, and I'll be back. I know the holidays are coming up, so I'm going to give you guys a break. But I'll come back after the holidays and we'll have some more good stuff, especially for the upcoming year, because hiring season is coming.
Yeah, it is coming. It is coming. Things are going to pick up. All right, Bridget, thank you. Have a great evening. I appreciate you.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.